Welcome, everybody, to the January edition of Conversations with Archbishop Kurtz. Happy New Year.
Well, Happy New Year to you, Brian. This is going to be a great year for us, I think. It's going to be a Jubilee year.
Jubilee year. You know,
Exactly.
we have a great show ahead of us. In this first segment, that's what the topic we wanted to talk about. You know, as we did last fall, we talked about the Jubilee year of mercy that our Holy Father, Pope Francis, has called us to celebrate and commemorate and go through together. And we have some special programming in the Archdiocese about that. And the biggest one we want to talk about today in this segment is the Catholic Connection. Yeah. So, Year of Mercy and Catholic Connection.
That's wonderful. And I know you'll say a little more about it, but my understanding is that really under the leadership of Archbishop Kelly at the turn of the millennium, in 2001, I guess it was, we had a similar reaching out with Catholic Connections.
Yes, let's talk about that. You know, this whole idea of Catholic Connection is really an invitation to the entire Catholic people. One of the things you often say is, and I know the Holy Father says, it's not up to the clergy or the bishops or just priests to invite people to connect and stay with the church. It's a responsibility of all the baptized. Yeah. So the Catholic Connection Project invites Catholics across the diocese to help us identify people who are disconnected, people who have either fallen away, left out of some concern they had, left out of some feeling they had about the church, or for whatever reason are not part of our faith community anymore. So we've invited them to give us their names, and they've been doing that already through postcards. We've had radio spots. We have an online webpage I'll be talking about in a minute. And names are coming in. And from those names, as you know, you're going to reach out to them and contact them with a letter.
And have the listening sessions.
Yeah, and right after that, during February, we're going to have a whole series of 7 or 8 listening sessions throughout the Archdiocese.
I think I'm going to be at 2 of them, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, these will be opportunities for people to ask a question or discuss with other people who are feeling disconnected about why they're no longer active in the church and what might bring them back. This is so
important, Brian, too, because if we look at the United States, there's different ways to measure who is a Catholic.
Yeah, tell us.
But certainly, conservatively, there's 70 million Catholics in the United States. Okay. And even if, as some of the statistics are showing, 20% are really distant from the church, just think, what it means is if just 1% of people come closer to Christ and to the church during this time, we're talking about almost 1 million people. 700,000 people would be 1%. So it's a great number of people who potentially can be affected if we can reach out and invite and welcome them.
You know, in the first couple of weeks of this, we've gotten many names. In 2001, 5,000 names come in, and we don't have a tally yet, but they're coming in. And some people are sending their own name in and saying, I don't know how to come back. I don't know how to reconnect. Tell us, what makes a person leave, Archbishop?
Yeah, well, you know, there have been some studies on this too, Brian. Believe it or not, the most common thing is people drift away. People, just like we do on many good things, we fall out of the habit. Now, having said that, sometimes if people say, I want to be renewed, they don't always feel welcome. I remember young people, we've had gatherings where we have young adults who say, well, gee, I go to church and I'm the only one there. Well, it's kind of like a chicken and an egg, isn't it? They have to be there in order for them to welcome others. So part of, I think, this effort is just reaching out and saying to people, the season of Lent's about to start. This is a great time for you to come back. There are other reasons, Brian. You know, there are people who have been deeply affected, maybe by the way a bishop or a priest has not treated them correctly, or someone in a parish setting. People have been scandalized by so much of the sexual abuse of the past. There are people who probably just tire that maybe they've heard my sermons and I hadn't prepared them well enough, and there's a call for us. Pope Francis called us with Evangelii Gaudium as priests to be, and deacons to be better in our preparation and of homilies to invite people. And then there are people who have a difficulty with the church teaching, either because maybe they don't understand it correctly, or perhaps within this culture it's very hard to receive it. But we want to have a chance, and they deserve a chance to be able to take another look and to see the presence of Christ once again in their lives.
You know, the Catholic Connection Project is just that, as a small project. Gather names, they'll get a letter from you, and there'll be listening sessions if they want to come. But really the most important thing is what happens after that.
Yeah.
And so help us think about what should the typical average who's involved Catholic do as they think about people who in their lives they know who aren't part of the active in the community, or they hear of someone who wants to reconnect. What does a person do?
Well, listen, whether it's a priest celebrating Mass, someone who is in the pew with their family, or even alone, the first thing is to be aware of how important is the way they communicate with others. And it's a simple matter of, gosh, making room in a pew for someone. I remember as a pastor, there was a family with a number of children, and they said they could tell that there were some people who weren't anxious to make room in the pew for them. So it could be as simple as that. It can be reaching out to welcome. So often people say when someone comes who is a visitor, it's not just a matter of an announcement from the altar. That can sometimes help, of course, but it's even more importantly that personal contact. When you're leaving church, to say, gee, I don't know you, let me introduce myself to you. I'm not sure everybody realizes how important those little acts of hospitality can be in welcoming someone.
We don't want to emphasize that it's just about attendance, though, and it's not just about membership numbers. Tell us, what's the hope? Why should people come back? Why should people reconnect?
You know, I think the first thing is to rediscover Christ.
Yeah, okay.
To rediscover Christ. I mean, when someone's baptized, they belong to Christ once and forever. Yeah. And every time we come to the Easter Vigil and or Easter Sunday Mass, people have a chance to renew their baptismal promises. The primary promise is Christ's promise to them. And we need that. People so often are drifting and maybe forget how deep a meaning in life they can have, because as Pope Francis, who's, by the way, maybe the best brochure for what it means to reach out to others. But as he has said in so many different ways, he said, you know, it's so easy to turn in on ourselves, on our own little world. And so people would come back, first of all, because it's good for them. It will be good for them, but also we need them. It's good for the church. It's good for the body of Christ. And somehow, just as a family where people are absent at the holidays or at Thanksgiving, that family is diminished. The same is true for us, the body of Christ. We're diminished when someone is distant and not present. And it's more presence than, as you well said, activity. It's not, we want you to do this. Actions are important, but presence is the most important.
Very good. Well, let's remind everybody, if you yourself are feeling like you're searching for a way to come back home or reconnect with the church, we really do want to hear from you. If you know someone else, send us their name, and you can do that a number of ways. You can go to our webpage. You're going to see it on the screen here, archlu.org/welcome back. You can also call the Chancery at 585-3291 and ask to speak with one of our staff members about the Catholic Connection. We really do want to hear from you, and we want to hear from you either for yourself or for someone you'd like to let us know would appreciate hearing from Archbishop Kurtz, perhaps attending a listening session, or just to be reminded the openness of Christ, to welcome them to this faith community. That's what this is really about, isn't it?
Sure is. And you know, Brian, you've done so much, and so has so many on the committee that's helping to put this together. So a special thanks to you for doing that.
Well, the Year of Mercy begins with the Catholic Connection, and we'll be talking during this whole year about other things that happen. It's going to be an exciting year.
It sure is.
And so Happy New Year's once again. And stay with us, because we have a special guest in the next segment, Jason Hall from the Catholic Conference of Kentucky. So there's a lot going on in January. Be right back.